All, I'm here, Kathy's here, Pat's here, Donna's here, Doug is here. Wilson just made his appearance. John is here, Ellen is here, Dave is here, Mike Z is here, John, Jenny's here, Dean is here, Joe is here, and I think Robin could be on Zoom, and Kemp could be on Zoom. Okay. Okay, I have a
I
motion.
am on Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Pat, second? Second. John? Any changes?
Ed, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You know the thing about the grant reimbursement?
Yeah.
Can we do an update on that?
Yeah, I'll have that later.
Okay. Are you gonna do that in executive session like the other ones, or can we do it?
I'm gonna do it in session.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes?
Pretty close? Not even close.
Have a motion to approve? John? Second? Second, Pat? Any changes, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Any public participation? Mike, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Kind of run you through an overview of what's been going on this week. Because of spring break, we've been able to get in the building and take care of a lot of different punch list items and other work that had to wait. The school wasn't so busy, so this was a great week to do it. If you guys recall about the elevator change order we discussed last week, they've been on site. All the contractors associated with that change have been on site this week. The elevator programming component and introducing the card reader within the elevator is now completely operational. I spoke with Rachel yesterday and mentioned that she'll have to reprogram some of the access control cards for different access types, and such. The added door hardware, the mag locks, all of those have been installed and are operational. Fire Tech was here today. They're a programmer of Net Services, who's our security and access control contractor, fire alarm. So they're in there tying in the fire alarm relays to those devices, making sure they drop out in the event of a fire alarm. There are also buttons inside the fire alarm panels that de-energize those mag locks in the event that you guys need to do that. There's also overrides on the key switches, which I reviewed with Dean earlier. Generally the elevator is 98% complete. We're just working out some kinks with access control programming and elevator programming, but we're largely in good shape for when the students return on Monday. Roofing, the roofing punch list. The roofer has been here this week, addressing punch list and roof repairs. All that's been ongoing this week. We intend to keep going tomorrow, and we'll also be there on Saturday to near completion. I think we'll need maybe one Saturday, two at the most, to finish those up. So the manufacturer, GAF, can come out and walk the roofs in early May to generate that final warranty. So they've made a lot of good progress, which is good. Punch list, again, more progress being made this week. Various different contractors coming in and completing items that weren't able to be completed before. We're down to 7 punch list items on the inside of the building, and the remaining 31 items related to the punch list are all, exterior driven, which is currently being worked on and throughout this week and also as the fields progress. Switching to balancing, we provided the final balancing report to the design team and the commissioning agent for review, I believe about a week and a half ago. We got some initial comments back and that dialogue is kind of ongoing. But we're happy to have seen the final report and try to finalize these systems, check out with IES, the commissioning agent.
Can I go back to the roof?
Sure.
So, I saw a lot of foam ready to be installed, but there was quite a bit of material that was
In the parking
in the
lot?
parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is it, when they open it up, is it what you expected, is it?
It's better than we expected. We expected it to be a little bit moist at the cover board and trickle down a little bit into the insulation. And even in the worst area that we thought we were gonna have to start chasing insulation down to the deck, we didn't encounter anything. No water intrusion issues, and it was reviewed with the roofing manufacturer, and it satisfies their requirements and standards. And
So the roof manufacturer was here?
yep, they're here on Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday.
So, I mean, that's how, that, and then the other issue were the rubber itself, right?
Right, most of the work that we're doing up there is through construction, holes got into the roof just because of the work that needed to happen up on the roof. And we ended up just patching, too many holes, which made, the roofing manufacturer uncomfortable, so
Yeah.
really just cutting out squares of membrane and just re-gluing it back, which is the least invasive part of it, which is good. But generally, it's been successful. Switching over to the fields, I believe last month, Field Turf was there for a couple days, and they were just kind of getting started. Obviously, since then, they finished up about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So the turf looks great, that's groomed, and you can see all the lines in it, it looks great. We're tracking well to turn over the baseball fields towards the end of the month. Recall that once everything's been completed, we're gonna generate a punch list, and we're gonna ask SLAM to issue the certificate of substantial completion, so that the field's gonna be playable. Obviously, looking to keep pulling that date back as we, encounter more things. You'll notice that we poured the dugout pads today along the third baseline. It's tricky, or around the first baseline. We weren't able to pour it along the third baseline because we're still trying to finish that HD concrete, the heavy, thicker section of concrete around that outbuilding area. But the way the mixer has to pull into the job, it's such a tight corridor that we're literally placing and working our way out in the back. So as they, get to the dugout right here, they're pouring concrete, coming back, and then once the mixer's out of the way, they'll be able to form and pour that dugout pad and then be able to get the enclosure installed. We'll have the fence crew back tomorrow to start addressing some of the perimeter fencing around the baseball field, everything that was left out, that needed to be left out to facilitate access for all the other trades. So, we feel pretty good about the sequence of activities in that field, and, I feel like we're tracking pretty good. For the softball field, a lot of work's been going on. We're trying to, again, continue sidewalks around the field so there's not an issue with access later on when Liberty Landscaping comes back to do all the anchor curbing around the perimeter of the varsity baseball field. Eagle Fence was here on Monday. They started to erect all the backstop posts, so all those are now standing up. We poured concrete yesterday and today, so we'll let that cure. And generally we're on track for late July of synthetic turf completion of that field, but again, it's another instance where we have to work our way out and really just spread topsoil on our way out. Make sure we connect the raceway, electrical raceway, that's gonna get the gate communicating again. And so really that work's gonna kind of drag a couple weeks past late July, but generally in the first couple weeks of August, we're gonna be in good shape to be totally out of your hair, and we'll ask them to give us another certificate of substantial completion, so.
Also, you did some other temporary fence tweaks, right, to try to allow a little more viewing access for things like the
Yep, around.
the tennis courts and, right?
Yep, around the outbuilding, it's, we're still trying to finish the concrete where that landing strip is, Ed likes to call it. And we noticed that we had a little bit of some fence issues because there were some benches set up for parents to watch their kids play tennis. So we ended up adding some extra snow fencing and kind of secure the area a little bit better so people weren't entering in the construction area and just making life a little bit easier for people.
Are you, when's our open house?
25th.
25th. I'm just thinking areas where we can get to and make sure that we can, utilize, get to most of these spots by the 25th, so we got a couple weeks for that anyway.
Yeah, it's next Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned snow fencing, I'm thinking, where you can go in and out, I'm sure people are gonna wanna walk and see us.
Yeah, and one of the next areas is they've got some more work on, like said, that HD concrete that comes down
Yeah.
right up to the outbuilding. They've got a little more to finish, but then that whole, whatever, the landing strip, we can
you know, open that up.
The goal is to try
essentially.
to, you know, instead of these big blocks of, okay, everything's ready, if we can get that landing
Yeah.
strip to the point where parents can, you know, watch tennis matches or things along that, well,
They just
that's why the
have
fence is movable, so
Yeah.
that we can
to,
keep
they
it.
just have to pull one more section of that.
Well,
We just gotta continue though,
Right.
the sewer ramp is just
Right.
gotta go like 3 more
Yeah.
blocks now, but you know, what we saw today, they did that one too. But again, you know, if we wanna walk, you know, that Wednesday before that ribbon cutting, just to make sure all the fencing and stuff is up to snuff and make sure people aren't going where they don't need to be going, then, you know, we're certainly here to help do that effort, so.
anyway, give an update on landscapers, we'll be back to it, right?
Another good point, on Monday, our landscaper will be back. If you noticed, if you're in the area lately, we actually dug out the rest, we have 70 feet of extra retaining wall to build. So they're gonna focus on that, and then they'll also focus on all the other areas that they need to touch up throughout the high school that were turned over in January, you know, weeding, reseeding where they need to, slash seeding, things like that, so.
Okay, so, you know, there's a lot of washout.
And like that bank when you come in like along the middle school,
Yeah.
the idea is to get all that dressed and cleaned up.
Yeah, that, I mean, that was never, I mean, I'm talking about areas, especially on the high school side, that you'll see some washout and things of that nature, so a lot of attention's gotta be going into that. So that's happening, he's starting on Monday?
Yep.
Is but he's starting with your wall on Monday, or is he
He's gonna
hitting
be
the grounds?
hitting both, two
Okay.
crews, yep.
So they're gonna hit the grounds on Monday?
And then, does Dean have a plan? See you in that with
I
you?
shared that landscaping plan with you with the anticipated goals for turnover and stuff like
Yeah.
that, to get for your
Yeah.
bidding process.
Yeah.
I guess just, and give that a look, if there's something that's not on that you know about that doesn't look right, would you just,
Yeah, you know, I mean,
Throw a flag.
speaking of that, I really, I don't know when it's ours. You know, when is it my responsibility? When is that gonna happen?
And that's part of in the plan, we had anticipated goals for when they, you know, they put in that work starting on Monday. You know, the goal is to get that growing for, you know, the rest of the month of April. And then at the end of May, and make sure, we'll get Slam out there towards the end of May to walk it with you, walk it with Mario, walk it with Slam and their landscape architect. To make sure everybody's comfortable with the way that it looks, for us to finally, you know, relieve that to you.
So you're saying by the end of May, it's my responsibility?
That's my goal.
For
Whether or not
certain
it's
parts
accepted
of
as
it.
one thing.
right, provided that it's been deemed accepted.
And again, this is the parts, these are the parts that were done last year. So anything that's getting done this spring, now, when will that be mine?
Like the fields you're saying?
Well, the bank that you're putting in, and you have grass growing on a bank, stuff you haven't planted yet, stuff that you're going to be not fixing now, installing now.
We're just installing, it's not until it's accepted, it really
Right.
depends on how well it establishes in the spring planting season.
You know, if it doesn't establish, it's not gonna get accepted, you know, and to that point, it's gonna have to get accepted into the fall. Cause it's just gonna be so hot there in July and August, if it's not growing, it's not, you know, in the spring, it's not
Right,
gonna
the
grow.
last stuff that we plant when we're working our way out it's not in the ideal time for planting, we know that, so they're gonna have to come back in the fall.
And that's really such a small portion of the entire complex. I'm really thinking 75% of the complex, what we turned over in, you know, January of 2025. That's really the goal, you know, the Winthrop Street parking lot, the Prudke parking lot, all around the backside of the building, Route 8. Those are the areas that
That'll be
I'm
turned
saying
over
at the
when?
end of May, end of May.
Oh.
You know, the middle school parking
Did you
lot,
say January 2025, like that's?
that's,
The stuff they gave
when we
No.
turned over those areas in January 25. When we couldn't see it in December.
the weeks.
Yes. Okay,
May I please?
You may?
The stuff that you sprayed, I think it was November,
Right.
is gonna be completely, re-topsoiled where it's washed out and resprayed? And be ready by May?
That's my
And I
goal.
think that's a pipe dream, but we'll see, I guess. I don't know how that could possibly happen.
It's grass.
It depends on the weather, you get good grass growing weather, it's gonna happen. You get
Yeah,
horrible
it's not
weather,
gonna
it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I can't put a bubble over the property.
All right, well, I think the 75% is exaggerated, but it's a wait and see type of thing.
yeah. I guess within a couple of weeks, we'll be able to have a better
Right,
idea.
if it doesn't
And
grow,
we'll
it's
know.
not gonna be accepted.
So it starts popping, we'll see it.
Yeah,
We'll be
Alright.
there and
Yeah.
it'll be there and Mario and I will be there and it's not acceptable. Not gonna-
And we also talked about the Javelin. Are you guys using the Javelin area right now?
yeah,
You are. The area that has not been accepted, but again, something that, you know, we're willing to work with you and reseed it in the fall, you know, after after that sport's over with, you know, just so you guys can play on it, even though that's not accepted. But again, the landscaper and I had a talk, and, you know, he's gonna make that good faith effort,
And that's on that plan too, right?
and that's on that plan. Yep.
Okay, anything else? John, John sent me his latest this afternoon, so tomorrow morning I will, send it out to everybody. Just got it this afternoon. Okay, John?
Good afternoon. Other than the punch list work that's been happening in the field, it's been quiet on the testing and inspection front. There have been no test reports or lab reports done. The one field report that Ed just referred to is our field report 136, came out today from our site visit today. We're down to 10 items, 9 of which are on the punch list already and are being tracked, and the balance are related to the ongoing site work. There was one submittal that Mike referred to, that's the startup and the balancing report for hydronics and for air for the building. It's going through CES for their review. I know there's been a dialogue, but it hasn't come back yet with formal comments.
Correct, yeah.
And hopefully it'll come back and the comments will be minor, and they can address those.
So did we come to any, ideas as far as, I know we said that we can't, the system doesn't allow us to put humidity in the air. But then we talked about possibly checking what the minimum code was for fresh air, that maybe we can dampen that more so that we're, you know, not bringing in such cold, dry air in the wintertime or in those conditions. Any,
I know Slam was going to look into I believe Slam was going to look into what the parameters were, the design parameters.
okay,
I have not looked into that, but I can see what the design requirements were. Mike, you haven't heard anything
I
from?
have not heard anything, and I did ask MJ Daly that too. I did not hear back, so.
Hey, John, just send me a note and I'll get in touch with also.
I'm
What
sorry?
has to be done, just send me a note.
that was especially for the gymnasium area,
Just
we're looking at
right.
that because of that and the floor, right?
Right, and I think, we talked about, like, there's a sequence of operations that it's operating under
Yep,
now, but can that sequence of operations be altered when the conditions are such to try to do whatever we can to not bring all the moisture out of the building, right? I think is where we,
And those units down there perform differently, they're set up differently than the balance of the
Yeah.
building. The air handlers, they handle the.
Yeah, so there's like two different areas we're trying to handle, the gymnasium is one and classrooms would be
Correct.
a completely different probably approach.
They-
The
they work
auditorium's got
differently.
its own AHU, the
Yeah.
cafeteria.
yeah, I don't think that do you think that there's a concern with the rest of the building?
Yeah,
You do, okay, as far as it being too dry?
Yep.
I mean,
yep, definitely.
so we may have to revisit that with Slam and CS. I think, I know we focused a lot of time on the gymnasiums. I don't know if we necessarily emphasized enough that there was a similar question about the rest of the building, so I think we'll have to just revisit that and let them know that there's a parallel path. They've gotta take a look at that as well.
Yeah, I mean, all the trending data should be there, I mean, if you look in the deepest part of winters, and if you look at these classrooms, what the relative humidity was in there, you know, it's low, it's low.
Wasn't low today, but it does get low.
It's pretty high yesterday, we fixed that though. The other question I had was, did we come up with a solution for this water possibly getting into our filters on the returns for these DOAs?
Not yet, still
Okay.
in kind of an ongoing active conversation with the design team and with MJ Daly.
Okay,
You know, but we, again, did replace a bunch of filters in the high school, and I got delivery of filters yesterday to finish up.
I just wanna make sure it doesn't, that, you know,
Right.
replacing the filters is
Right.
not the fix, right?
No, it's not, definitely not.
I talked to Mike about this today, and I did some testing of the velocity of air going into the units today, and I wanna talk to Slam about it and find out what the units are designed to perform at.
Yeah.
But there were some velocities that were high,
Yeah.
and maybe the units are fine with high velocities like that. Most of the units were fine, but there was one unit in particular that the velocity velocity as well.
And we have a mark, Mikey, right, when Zach went up there, exactly which units we went into that you found the, to correlate with
Right.
velocity, right?
Yep.
So,
There are also, and this is another conversation I'll have with Slam, there are also non-organic filters that can be used, maybe if that's the issue, different type of filter can be used, but let me talk to Slam and Jay Daly and.
Right, and I think, right, I think we have MJ Daly looking into that as far as filter options as well, and I think he said that those were, it's okay for them to get wet, but is there a filter that might be a better selection that inevitably may or may not get wet, so.
But we'll start with the velocity part of it.
yeah, let's stay with the velocity. There's not a filter that's supposed to get wet. There's some that might not.
They're resistive to being in wet
Yeah,
conditions.
they're, again, when you get to that dew point where it's actually water, there's a different story than high humidity, so. And we're talking rainwater getting up there. I had something else. Oh, as far as that goes, and the gym floor, where did we stand as far as we were gonna do the bounce test? And,
Yep, I did reach out to Curran, and they are getting their hands on that testing mechanism. It was on another job, and they're hoping to have it later this week, early next week, and I'll reach out to you to see
Okay.
what the best day is to do that deflection test in that one area.
deflection test, yeah. Okay. All right,
And all the repairs were completed, and
yeah, so all the chips were completed, that piece was put back, right?
the one piece that they temporarily would fill, that's still temporarily in the fashion, as we're working on maintenance cost in the background here to, when they come to do that, then they'll be able to rip out that one last piece and reseal the floor and then extend your warranty for that year.
Okay.
Dean, do we have relative humidity data from the other schools from over the winter, just to kind of get, any of the other BMS kept track of it, so you could see if the high school is just way drier than the other schools? You know, if we're saying the outside air was so dry and that was the cause, you would see the exact same complaint, more or less, in our other school buildings.
Well, you have different systems.
True,
You have
but-
windows, you have older systems, you have more hydronics than you do here. You have a lot of air moving in this building, so.
Yeah, I was thinking TIS. TIS is not a whole lot of hydronics, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a big difference. And so I don't have that data to come back and say, so there would be
Just a thought.
maybe. As we go through with that.
Anything else, John?
Yes, sir.
The application and certificate of payment this month, $86,464.62. Have a motion to approve. Pat? Second? Second. Who's that, Kathy? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye, opposed? You're up.
PCOs?
Yeah.
Only got 7 PCOs this month. Sorry. PCO 754 is nowhere cost of $42,714. And the high school occupied in January of 2025. Prior to that, we realized that the north spaces of Area G, which are some storage rooms off on the north side of the gym, and also the middle school health classroom, weren't gonna have fresh air at the start of school, which is obviously violates code. So the reason that we introduced a temporary HVAC unit to serve fresh air to those rooms is that the permanent lines, feeding those rooms were fed from the HRV unit, which lives in Area H and was not, yet ready to be installed at that time for when we wanted to turn over the building in January. So sort of a phasing thing. That's a large majority of that cost. PCO 765 is an order cost of $1,689. We provided floor boxes in the high school gym for power and data needed at the scores table. The specified floor box covers did not sit flush with the floor and it created a tripping hazard. So we purchased a flush box cover furnished by the electrical contractor, who handed it over to the wood flooring contractor to wrap out the floor and set it flush with the floor.
Are these the boxes that we moved in the
Yes,
floor?
yeah.
So we spec'd them, we then put them in and they were flushed the first time, or they weren't flushed the first
They
time?
weren't flushed the first, they would have never been flushed. All we changed is just like the head cover on it. Set it down a little bit further.
So that was to change just the cover was $2,000.
The cover itself was like $600 and the rest was just the labor for the wood flooring installer to route out the floor,
Got it.
get on his knees and use a tool.
Thank you.
PCO 766 is a CM contingency cost of $1,842. This is for additional premium labor costs to Cherry Hill for a Sunday that we directed them to work to expedite the installation of aluminum entrances and storefronts in Area H. PCO 767 has allowance number 15 for journeyman hours related to Cherry Hill for frame modifications needed throughout the project. We exceeded the allowance, so a hit of $1,631 to the CM contingency. PCO 768 is an owner cost of $5,786. This is to improve the level of drywall finish from a level 4 to a level 5 finish at the auditorium sail walls that were not indicated on the documents but required per SLAM direction. PCO 771 is a CM contingency cost of $613 for temporary toilets in the March 2026 period. And PCO 773 is an owner cost of $1,980. There are the MAC metal panels, which are those wood grain like panels that we have on the building, those tongue and groove slot panels. We installed those at the box portals at the middle school elevation. If you're in the middle school parking lot, you have these portals that protrude out from the rest of the building facade. There was a concern, I think, raised by Mario at the time that when you're at grade level, the panels, since they don't have sheathing behind them, it's just you have stud framing behind it, and then you have horizontal hat channeling. That at grade level, if anybody was leaning on those panels, it would kind of indent them. So we came up with the idea to kind of reinforce the back of them, and really essentially it's just we added 8 feet of plywood from the finished floor level of the sidewalk up to 8 feet tall with plywood to help kind of reinforce that concern. So and that's it.
No chance of moisture getting in there? So
That was a concern because we actually originally suggested doing like a rigid insulation in the back to kind of help it, but SLAM told us not to do that because it would inhibit the moisture, being able to breathe behind that system.
Can I have a motion to approve the,
Doug?
Just one, about the drywall, what was the drywall issue in the auditorium with the sales?
It's really just, there's really technically 5 levels of drywall finish. 4 is pretty typical, you see all that in the corridors, if light's shining on it, if you get, you'll be able to kind of see a little bit of the taping seams, but with how, pronounced those curved architectural sail walls are and how, the beautiful finishes that Sam selected, I think they were like Wolf Gordon, I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, that's fancy paint. But, in a space like that, we said, spend the money to go from a level 4 to a level 5.
what's it take? What's a
It's
level?
not 5 feet, it's spray, it's actually a spray compound, usually
And then-
level 4
and
is
then-
just
and
a
it's-
trowel.
Technically,
Yeah,
it's
and
a
it's
full
kind of
skim
work-
coat.
It's almost like doing like veneer plaster.
Yeah.
Technically 5 is a full skim.
Gotcha, so it's a full skim coat over the top of it, prior, as opposed to where the nail joints are and all of that. Your joints now are the whole wall, right, so it's a skim coat. So level 4 is not, level 5 is a skim coat.
Level 5 is like most spray finish.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you.
can I have a motion to approve the PCOs, that, second, Doug. Okay, thank you, Doug. Any discussion, all in favor? Aye, opposed, okay. You have the, as I always give you, the analysis of payments. And then we have one payment of invoice, for BO companies, $1,905.75. Can I have a motion to approve that payment?
So,
Ellen,
second,
second Kathy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, okay. And the next one is, I always give you the project budget. So that's, the last thing. Just one other item, if you remember, we had some, change orders that were, the date was extended and so forth. So those change orders, were about $1.3 million. The state, after a letter from, superintendent, we got down to, they took away 920,000 of that 1.3, so the change orders are now in line with 411,000. Just want to let you know about that. Comments for the good of order, Armand,
All set.
Doug,
Yep, all set.
No, thank you, I'm all set.
Donna.
I think I'm all set, thank you.
One question, you were discussing the roof patch, just in general, what is the warranty on a roof?
I think it's 20.
20 years.
I believe it's 20. I don't think we paid for the.
No, we didn't pay for the
10.
30 years.
No, 20, so it'd be 20 years from whatever they accepted in May.
Dave?
Nothing from me, thank you.
I'm good, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. John?
Nothing.
I have just one question. You've got the sheet of all the payments and change orders. How did it all pan out with the fields, you know, the 6 million and us having 900,000, all the credits coming back from the project? How did we end up doing on the $6 million total?
Well, we're gonna spend 6 million. close
Well,
to it.
right, but
we're gonna have.
we had to have 900,000.
Right now, we have $700,000. We still have to go to allowances and a couple other change orders that are deductible, so we'll have to have 900,000.
Fantastic,
Close
thank you.
to it. We're right at 703,000 now.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Oh yeah, Robin, you have anything? Sorry.
No, thank you. All set.
Dr. Mario.
Yes, sir. Just a reminder for the board to attend the ribbon cutting. Hopefully, everyone can make it. Also, there's a very large track meet. We have 18 teams so far on May 9th. That'll be nice if you guys lay eyes on that too, if you're available.
Yeah, please show.
And of course, yeah, Ed's gonna flip burgers, right? So, but O&G knows these two critical dates, and they're gonna do their best to make that campus as beautiful as possible, given the fact that it's half under construction still.
Mario, did you come back with any money?
Not much.
Took the kids to Orlando.
I've been the only one there last week.
Yeah, right.
No executive session. Next meeting is May 21st. And can I have a motion to adjourn at 5:33? Pat and John.